Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Narsima and Pirumal. I hope I don't see your screen right now.
Yeah.
Did you?
1 minute.
Okay, yeah.
Let me share. Are you able to see my screen? No?
Yeah, can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, you can
So,
start.
yeah, thank you.
Thank
Uh,
you.
thank, thank you, Srishti. Thank you guys for joining our session. First of all, we would like to thank all the sponsors for this great event. And then, as you have already know, we have a great event planned. And at the end of the event, we have planned for a quiz and with the existing exciting prizes. And then again, please show your support for supporting a cause. Okay, again, I am Narasimha Perumal Chandramogan. I am the co-founder of GG Technologies Private Limited, and my company works on M365 migration workloads. Like we support OneDrive, Teams, Planner, SharePoint, Exchange, Yammer. And then again, I have Vinoda Muthuali. She is my colleague, and we are both are working in the same team. And she is solution architect at GG Technologies Private Limited, and both of us are Microsoft MVP. So today's our session is focused on how to use Microsoft Entra permission management. In Entra, there are multiple items are there, but today we are going to concentrate only on permission management for multi-cloud environment. So in today's session, first we will be speaking about the what are the challenges with the multi-cloud identity management. What are the challenges when we use multi-cloud for and what are the permission challenges we get. First, we will be discussing about that, and then everything is mostly on demos. So the entire permission management in Entra will be demoed to you. And finally, if time permits, we will show you how you can set up the Entra permission management with Azure and AWS. So for today's demo, we will be using Azure and then AWS. And we have not included GCP, Google Cloud. So I will be covering the demo part, and then Vinoda will take care on the challenges part. Once he completes the challenges part, and we will be moving to the demo part. Can you share your screen and proceed?
Yes, I shall. Are you able to see my screen?
No, not yet.
Yes, can see.
Yes. Now we are going to see the multi-cloud identity challenges. In the
Can
past,
you,
yes,
can you run in the presenter mode? Yeah, fine. Please go ahead.
yes. Okay. Now we are going to see the multi-cloud challenges. In the past, most of the IT infrastructure and apps of an enterprise are on-premise and were operating within the boundary. And over time, more and more organization assets are living beyond the organizational boundaries by the adaptation of SaaS apps. And the cloud computing really making the boundary disappear. And most of the companies are adopting cloud computing and multi-cloud architecture for strategic reasons. And next, due to DevOps evolution, the number of identities operating in an environment has increased exponentially. And mainly non-human identities such as virtual machines and containers, access keys, and script, serverless function, etc. So all the entities need permission to operate in a particular environment. So the organizations are struggling with lack of visibility and increasing complexity of managing those access permissions. And mainly in each environment, the IT security team are under increased pressure, that is to ensure that their cloud environment is secure and compliant. And here, the whole method of permission management rely on static ways, that is to assign permissions based on assumptions like employees, job title, or department. And most of the time, it leads to massive over provisioning of permissions, and it leads to a huge gap between total permissions granted and the permissions that are actually used. So this gap is referred as permission gap. And to measure this permission gap, they have a metric called permission creep index. And using this index, they measure the customers on an average and they measure the customer randomly. And the result shows that over 90% of identities use less than 5% of permissions they are granted. That means 95% of permissions are unused and excessive. So this leads to potential security threat for the organization. And if this process is unnoticed, the permissions, that is the permission gap keeps growing and it leads to a huge risk. That is, it's a major threat. So if the permission gap is increasing, then there is an organizational breach and they steal some sensitive assets in an organization. And now we are going to see some risk assessment key findings. The first finding is over 90% of identities are using less than 5% of permissions granted. So this excess permissioned identities are exposed to credential theft risk. To avoid those credential theft risk, the best practice is to we have to remove the inactive roles or policies and identities. And the next finding is cross-account access. Cross-account access is frequently granted to external identities. So these external identities can access all resources in the target account. So it may lead to data leakage or malicious service disruption. So to avoid this data leakage and malicious service disruption, the best practice is to right size the permission based on the lost activities of those external identities, or you can grant additional permissions on on-demand basis. And the next finding is in most of the environment, there is a lack in separation of duties. That is, the users have excessive roles or policies in both the development and production environment. So this excessive permission in both the environment exposes your infrastructure to both the insider threats and malicious external threats. So to avoid this, you have to right size the permissions in the development environment, and you can clone those permissions into the production, and you have to check whether the right size permissions are allotted in the production environment. And the next finding is workload identities. The workload identities means the managed identities. That is, these identities are over provisioned and more than 40% are inactive. So this inactive identities may lead to credential misuse or exploitation for malicious activities. So for this, again, you have to right size the scope of roles and policies to access those to access the limited resources, and you have to limit the access to specific identities in the accounts. And now, so achieving zero standing privileges is a necessary one in all the environment. So this zero standing privileges is achieved using the Microsoft Entra permission management. In Microsoft Entra permission management, they adopt a holistic approach, which is very dynamic in nature. And this approach is designed in a way that it recommended you step through each phase in order to gain insights into permissions across the organization. The phases are discover, remediate, and monitor. The first thing is you have to discover what are all the identities in the environment. Identities in the sense user identities and workload identities. User identities such as employees, customers, external partners, and workload identities such as virtual machine, containers, web apps, serverless functions. So you have to discover all those identities in your environment, and next access the risk and plan proper remediation to minimize those risks. And after that, continuously monitor the permissions in the environment. So overall, Microsoft Entra permission management provides you comprehensive visibility into those permissions assigned to all the identities. And permission management detects and automatically right size the permissions and continuously monitor the unused and excessive permissions. So the Microsoft Entra permission management deepens the zero trust security strategy by augmenting a least privilege access principle. And next, we are going to see the detailed demo on Microsoft Entra permission management and the phases. And it will be handled by my colleague Narsima Perumal. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vinu. Let me share my screen. Now, are you able to see my screen? Vinu, are you able to see my screen?
Yes. Your
Okay,
screen
okay,
is
thank you. Thank you. So we have gone through the basic risk assessments and what are the risks are there and how those risk affects and what are the best practices. In today's demo, we will be showing the solution and the best practices that we can apply using the Entra itself. And then this is the approach that Entra suggesting, EPM, the Entra Permission Management suggests. First, we will be discovering all the identities, all the applications, all the workloads, and what are the permissions assigned to those identities, the applications. And then once we get the complete picture of your environment, without getting a complete picture of your environment, you can't remediate. You can't make any remediation actions in your environment. First, you need to get a complete picture. Getting a complete picture will be difficult if you have a multi-cloud environment. So Entra is going to play a key role here. And then we will be seeing how you can remediate or how you can right size the permissions for all those applications and identities that you have discovered in the previous phase. So now in the second phase, you have settled everything. You have done the complete remediate actions and you are safe. Now, then the third phase is monitor. So again, you need to keep a monitor all the resources, permissions and everything. How again the excessive permissions are not applied for any particular resource or identity. How you can do that. So we will be in the demo, we will be going to each of these phases and then with the best practices and what are the key findings you can do. So first phase is discover phase. Let me go to the Entra portal. So I have logged into the Entra portal, Microsoft Entra portal. And then now I am going to the permission management. There are multiple items with the Entra, like workload identities, verified identity governance like that. But in today's session, we are going to focus only on permission management. So I'm going to the permission management portal. For those who not know about CloudNox, actually CloudNox is a third-party one, which recently got acquired by Microsoft for permission management, and then it has been rebranded into Entra. Due to this reason, you are seeing the URL with the name CloudNox here. So first, we have logged into the Entra permission management portal, and I am on the dashboard. So I have configured AWS, and then I have configured Azure also. For Azure, I have two subscriptions. I have included two subscriptions. So in the dashboard, you are seeing the PCI index board. So this very big bubble one has a 61 identities that is mentioned inside the bubble. And this has a PCI score of 67. And then again, I have another subscription which has a PCI score of 82. And there are 20 identities are there in that another subscription. So as you see that the subscription with a higher PCI score on the red side. So as this PCI score increases, the level of risk also increases. This is what indicated by these bubbles. If I click this bubble, I will get more insight like how many users are there, how many applications are there, how many managed identities are there, and with the risk rate. For example, in my Azure subscription, both of the subscriptions included, I have four high risk users and then 50 medium risky users and then three low risk users. Similarly for applications and managed identities. And then I am seeing a graph of how my risk rating whether it is getting increased or it is getting down like that. For example, here you can see that the initial the rate and the PCA score was 83, and then and it subsequently after applying some actions, I am getting it into 67. If I come below, the dashboard will show some of the key findings. How many active, inactive users are there, how many inactive apps are there, how many provisioned users are there. And then if you take on resource side, we can see how many blobs that are accessible by public externally, and then how many NSG, network security groups are open, and then how many blobs are encrypted with Microsoft managed keys, not with their own key. Those findings are shown. So these are the some of the details available in the dashboard. Now let's go to the report section. So I am on the report section. Today we will be mostly speaking with the permission analytics report alone. There are various reports available, but mostly we will be dealing with the permission analytics report alone. So first, I have selected my AWS environment. Let me see the summary first for my environment. AWS environment. Here, I can see what is the PCI score rated for my environment, and then how I am performing my PCI score for my identities and apps, how I am performing compared to the industry standard like my peers, or how I am my score is compared to the benchmark. For example, here you can see that there are here the benchmark is 10%, but I am on 40 percentage. And again here I am on the benchmark is 10%, but we are still on the 10% that that we are maintaining it. And then here we can see the comparison of what is my score and compared to the my peers in the industry. So here it will provide a beautiful summary of overall AWS environment. Now, this summary report is available only for AWS. Currently, it is not available for Azure. Now, let's switch over to Azure and see what are the various reports available for Azure. Now, let's go to the Users tab, Users report. So I have selected, I have generated the inactive users report. Here you can see that uh, for Alex, there are 12,535 permissions are allocated, but he has not used any of those permissions, and also he has not yet logged into the environment. So he has a very high risk score of 83, PCI score of 83. So from here, I can see uh, the PCI score of all the users, and also the last time when they have logged in, and also what are the number of permissions they are using when compared to the granted permissions. If you want more detail on what are the permissions assigned to him, what are the permissions he has used, for those things, we need to go to the analytics tab. So now I am on the analytics tab. Let's compare for Adli. let's see what are the permissions assigned to her and how she is using it. So here you can see that these many number of unused permissions are there. Only two permissions she has used in the past 90 days. So due to this reason, she has a high PCA score of 83. Apart from this, from here, I can see what are the Azure roles available to her, and then the user group that she is member of. From here, if you click the user, you will be get into a detailed report. Like you can see how many direct roles are assigned to her and what are the permissions assigned to her and what are the permissions that she is using it and what are the resources she has access to. Again, what are the activities she has done in last 90 days and with the date and time from and the IPs are also available. Apart from this, we get the permissions on the entire subscription also. What are the permissions she has on the entire subscription also? So now coming back to the permission report. Now we have seen the inactive identities report. Similar to inactive identities report, we have the report for service principals also. Service principals are Azure AD apps that you create in your Azure AD environment. And then similar here also you can see that this particular identity has been assigned with 12,500 permissions, but nothing has been used. So this has again a high PCA score. Similarly, we can generate the serverless functions also, report on serverless functions also, what are the permissions granted to the individual functions and what are the permissions it is using. And similar to that, next we have the inactive groups. So here it will list the groups, the group members who particular members of that particular group, if they have not performed any action in last 90 days, those will be shown here. And also we can provide permissions based on security groups also. So here again, you can see what are the permissions, how many permissions are granted to the particular group and how many of it is used. Next, we have the super users. Super users are like, suppose if you are the person who is going to create a new M365 Microsoft 365 tenant, then you will be added as a global admin by default, and you will be the root user. Later, you will be adding multiple global administrators or some high privileged users in your tenant. So the users who have the same kind of authority or permissions which then root users can perform or do are called super identities. So in this environment, there are 4 super users are there. And similarly, to super users, we have service principals and serverless functions also. Next, we have the over provisioned active users. First, we have seen the inactive users. Now we are seeing the active users, but they are using very little permissions. Whatever they very just 5% of their granted permissions. Similarly, the serverless service principals and serverless functions. Now we can see the PCA distribution, how my PCA score is allocated when compared to the human identities and non-human identities. Next report is blob containers that you can access externally. This is one of the important reports. Basically, we don't, whenever the Entra is very first, you have provisioned Entra for your environment. On seeing this report, basically the customer gets somewhat shocked. So these many containers, I am exposing it anonymously like that, they may get shocked. So here, it will list all the blobs with the public access. And then Entra considers the blobs that are encrypted using Microsoft managed keys as a risky one. What they are suggesting is that it needs to be the encryption needs to be done by the customer managed keys like that. So due to this reason, whatever blobs that are encrypted using Microsoft managed keys will be listed here. And then we have the open network NSG groups, that is network security groups are listed here. Let's dig into something in depth here. So I am in the analytics tab, and then I'm switching from users to active resources. In active resources, I'm going to get in-depth detail of that particular NSG group. So this is the group that we want to get more detail on. So again, here also we get what are the permissions assigned to it, who are the users who have access to this particular NSG group, and what is the role they are getting it, what is the access they are getting in more in depth detail is available here. If I click this, I will get into more in-depth report again, individual in-depth report again. For NSGs, they have Entra have a special kind of feature called access graph. So here it lists down all the identities which have access to this NSG. So if I click this particular identity, I will be shown with a graph and what is the role I am getting it, how I am getting it, like this. And similarly, if I have any role assigned to it, again, I will be shown how this particular role this energy is getting and what is the inheritance flow like that. So something special with the NSG is access graph that I like to show to you. And then if you have users that you don't want to be included in your reporting, you can exclude them and those will be shown here. Let me show you how you can exclude the users. For example, I want to exclude this user. What I'm going to do is that to exclude the users, we need to add tags. So here I need to add the tag exclude from reports. If I add this tag, automatically the users will be excluded from the reporting. Suppose if you want the users to be excluded from the PCI score processing. Suppose if you feel that this user is not required to be included in the PCI score index, you want to lower down your score, then you can apply this tag CK exclude from PCI. So now we have seen an overview of the various Azure reports available. Let's see the AWS reports available. Already I have mentioned that we have the summary report for AWS, which is not available in Azure. Maybe in upcoming months, Microsoft may provide this. So most of the reports are same. Let's see something specific to AWS. So again, there we have the storage accounts. Here we have S3 bucket encryption reports. And then all these are related to the buckets, the storage accounts. And then we have identities that can administer the security tools. And similar to users, they have provided reports for resources and serverless functions also. And again, there is a specific report called identities that can access the secrets. So here also, if you can, by clicking the identity, you can get an in-depth view of what are the permissions they have, how many permissions they are using, what are the resources or the access they have. Those things you can perform from here. And we have the external, the cross-account access. This we have discussed earlier in the challenges part itself, the cross-tenant cross-account access. So in this environment, I have not created anything like that. and then MFA related. So how many users are MFA enabled and what is the percentage like that. And then we have IAM access keys in AWS. So those functions are also reporting are also shown here. Like what is the age of the access keys and when it has been used and what is the percentage of access keys are not used. Those functions are also shown here. Again, we can exclude the users, resources, from the reporting and PCA scoring. So now we have seen the discovery phase, very first phase. So from this, what we have learned is that we can get a complete cross-cloud visibility for both the users and workload identities. We have seen like managed users like access service principals, IAM keys, everything. And then we have seen that in our demo itself, we have seen that most of the identities using very small fraction of the granted permissions. For example, we have seen that more than 12,000 permissions are there, but the user is actually using 5 permissions or 2 permissions, which is a very low percentage. And then as a security admin, uh, I no need to be on assumption based. Let me, if I keep on assumption that my environment is secure, it won't help you. Here, we are doing a data driven approach. By doing a discovery phase initially, I can see what permission is there in my environment and what are the identities are there, what are the applications are there, and how they are overexposed and how they are overprivileged. Everything we got a complete overview in the discover phase. Now let's move on to the remediate phase. Now I got the complete picture of my environment. What are the users are there, how they are over provisioned, and what is the risk I'm going to get with this. So in the remediation phase, two things we are going to do. One is right sizing the permissions and then providing just-in-time access. First, we are going to see how I can right size the permissions for my identities. So I'm going to the remediation tab. So I have selected the Azure subscription. Let's generate a permission report for a specific user. I'm generating the report for Radley. Here you can see what are the permissions she has and in what resources, the permissions on what are the resources it has been assigned and what the role. Here you can see the quick actions like I can remove the unused task or the permissions or I can remove the highly privileged permissions, high risk privileged permissions, or I can just made those permissions as read only. So to do the right sizing, what we are going to do is that I'm going to policies and roles. I'm going to create a new role. So I'm selecting my Azure subscription. We can create a new role based on activity of an user or a group or activity of an app or from the existing one. So in our case, we are going to right size the permission for Adli. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a role based on activity of an user. So this is the user I'm going to create a role based on this user. So I'm going to add it. So I have added this particular user alone. On going to the next screen, it will show all the available permissions for this user Adli. But what we are doing is that we are going to mm, uh, provide or we are going to create a new role based on the activities that particular user has done. So it has assigned those actions alone here, but still we can remove if we feel something is not good or not correct, we can remove those actions. I can provide a name for it. I can provide a name for it, and then once I submit it, the role will get created. Once the role is created, I can assign that particular role to the user. Let's wait for the role to get created. So once the role has been created, we can assign the permission. Sorry, we can assign that role to this user from here. Here I can search for the role that we have just created. I think the role is not yet created, so it is not shown here. So once it is got created, it will be shown here. I can add this role to the particular user. So this is one way of right sizing the permissions using the Entra management portal for the particular user. Similarly, we can do for everything. For here we have done for user, but we can do for managed identities, applications, and groups also. Now, first point, in remediation phases, we are going to do two things, right? Sizing the permissions and then providing the just-in-time access. We have seen right sizing the permissions. Now we are going to see how we can provide just-in-time access. To do this, we are going to use the privileged identity management in Azure AD. So I am in the Azure AD portal, and then I am in the identity. I'm in the Azure AD portal, and then I'm going to the identity governance. From here, we are going to do a privileged access management. So by using the privileged identity management, I can provide access to the users on the any resource for a specific time alone. Once they requested it, it will be automatically approved, and then the privilege will be going to be available for the given time alone. It can be either assigned only once, or it can be in recurrent pattern also. For example, this user Adley is mostly going to work on the blob storage alone. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to select storage blob data owner, and then I am selecting this particular user alone. And then in settings part, I'm making the permissions to be auto approved. Whenever she is requesting for this particular permission, it will be auto approved, and it will be available for maximum of 1 week or 1 hour, whatever it is. I can set the required settings here. So this is one way of doing the just-in-time permission access. Next, let's see other controls that are available in the remediation phase. So this user SL, this user is the root user. Now consider that Atlee want to perform some actions. Here I have logged into another window with another user. Now she wants to perform some actions on Entra portal. Maybe she wants to explore the permissions assigned to the particular users or the particular resource. And if she wants to make some permission adjustments or corrections, how she can do is that using the Entra portal. Let's see. So I am on remediation tab and on my request. So I'm going to create a new request. I'm selecting the Azure subscription, and then I'm selecting my name itself. So what is the role I'm requesting for? So here, suppose consider that I want to perform something called I require this permission ACR push. So I'm requesting this permission and I'm submitting it for approval. So here I have scheduled it. I need this permission for 1 hour of time. Sorry, 2 hours of time. It is not a recurrent one. So I have submitted my request and then it goes to the root user. Here she can see the list of requests. She can go and get a detailed view of what has been requested. This particular role has been requested. I can see the time and everything. So I'm going to approve it. Once I approve it, what happens is that Entra runs these jobs in a periodic time. So this user, the Adley user, has requested for the role called ACR push, and this role will be assigned to this user on a given time. That is immediately we have asked for this role. So now I am again going to the users portal, and then let's see if this particular role has been assigned to her. Now we have the root user has approved it. Let's see from the other users window how it is. So here you can see that the request has been approved and it is in activating stage. That is the Entra is provisioning this rule for this particular user. Once it is done, when I come to Assure role assignments, I can see it here. So now we can see that this additional role has been applied to this user. Similar to roles, I can raise request for specific permissions also. Here, consider that I want to read about some user permissions or anything. I can add it. Or I want to read about the role assignments. I can add the required permissions and then again I can create a new request. I'm submitting it. So again the root user will get the request here. It seems someone has unmuted. Please mute yourself. Thank you. So again, I'm going to approve it. So when I come to this here in Azure AD portal for the role assignments, here you can see a custom defined role has been added to this particular user. It will take some time. Here it will be shown again for the earlier we have added a role, existing role. Now we are adding a set of few permissions alone. That this will be shown here. Let's see if it is getting activated or not. So the first request has been activated and it is source for how much time it is going to be active. And the second request is in activating stage. Once the activation is complete, when I go to the Azure portal, it will show a custom defined role with these two permissions alone. Yeah, it is started provisioning. This GUID will change into some naming format. It will take a few more seconds. The GUID name has changed into something permission on demand, CK underscore permission on demand. I will get a complete detail on what are the specific permissions has been granted here. So this way, again, you can have a just-in-time access for users using Entra permission management. Suppose as a root user, I feel that these permissions are not required, no more required for this particular user. If I want to cancel those things, I can do this. So I'm going to the remediation tab. Here I can see all the requests that I have approved. If I go and cancel this request, immediately it will start deprovisioning those permissions. So again, after a few seconds, here we have assigned ACR push permission role here. It will be deprovisioned in few seconds from now after the request has been cancelled. It will disappear after few seconds or few minutes. So these are the controls available in Entra portal for right sizing the permissions and then providing the permissions on demand. So we have seen about right sizing using the Entra remediation portal itself. And then we have seen how we can provide the permissions on demand using privileged identity management. And then we have seen the request models in the Entra permission management. So these are the recap for the remediation phase. So we have seen how we can revoke unused risky permissions, and also we have seen how we can resize the permissions using the custom roles available in the Entra permission management. And then we have seen how we can achieve zero standing privileges on demand using the privileged identity management and the request access model, approve model available in the Entra portal. Now let's get on to the monitoring phase. So what are the things we need to do in the monitoring phase? Again, two things are there. We can use the enforce the policy driven automation first thing, and then establish a delegation and approval workflows. These are the two things you need to do in the monitoring phase. Let's see how we can do this. So in first phase, we have discovered the permissions, and in the second phase, we have right-sized the permissions. And in the third phase, we need to monitor the environment to make sure uh, all the permissions are correct and nothing is wrong and everything is set right. No over provisioned users or permissions or roles or anything is there. To do this, what we are going to do is that again, we are going to utilize the identity governance. Or what we are going to do is that we are going to use the access reviews available in the Azure AD. So I am in the identity management portal, and then I'm going to access reviews. From access reviews, what we can do is that I can create access reviews regularly for all the roles with owner permissions. I think I am on the wrong portal. Basically, what I'm suggesting is that we want to uh, do review of all the roles with access similar to owners. So I'm creating a regular review for all the owners. I'm going to select in the roles. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to select all the roles with the names which contains the name owner. And then I can do a regular review for all. It is up to the managers to decide whether the given role is okay or not. If he wants, he can remove the roles. This is one way of regularly monitoring the permissions in your environment in using access reviews in Azure. And then let's see what are the controls available in the Entra portal. So now I am on the Entra portal. Go to the notification icon shown in the top right. Here I can create the alerts, create activity alerts here. Suppose any highly privileged action has been done. You want an immediate alert, you can create an alert here. And then we have role-based anomalies, like let me show you one thing so that you can understand. For example, a particular identity performs a particular task for a very first time, or identity performs a task for very first time, or any particular any resource has been accessed for a very particular time, for a very first time. These are some of the anomalies that the Microsoft is supporting in Entra. I need to create the required configurations and the time interval when it needs to be done. So this is another way of getting the anomaly reports. There are various permission related reports are also, the permission based alert reports are also available. For example, if there are any inactive groups has been detected, you will be automatically alerted. Or if there are any inactive users in your environment, again you can be automatically get alerted. So these are some of the uh, alerting systems available within EPM. So let's see how you can use an autopilot feature available in EPM, and you can do the right sizing the permissions. Basically, it seems it is still in development. Only limited features are available in the autopilot phase. So using an autopilot, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to the permissions, uh, remove the permissions unused on applications. I'm selecting all the subscriptions. And then if it is if it is not used for 90 days, what I'm going to do. So in autopilot, the permissions are not going to be removed automatically. It will be on demand. Like the meaning is that it will provide the recommendations to you. You can decide if you want to remove all the roles or the permissions, you can remove yourself. It will provide an easy way to do this. Let me show you. So we have created an autopilot. If I click this, it will generate the recommendations. We can generate the recommendations. So I think it may take some time to generate the recommendations. So I'm using the older rules that I have already created. So these are the recommendations it has generated. From here, I can apply the generated recommendations. I can either make it as read only or remove the right access, whatever it is. I can just select and apply it. This is one way of right sizing the permissions. Apart from applying the recommendations, we can revert back to the original format also. That is also available. So these are the controls available with the autopilot. So now we are coming to the last part. So what are the best practices when we are doing the workflows for permissions? Actually, you always don't provide the delete permissions to all the users. Provided it only when they require, only when it is requested and approved. And then always provide on-demand permissions for all the highly privileged access. And then using access reviews or use alerts and do the periodic access check. And then the custom alerts we have already seen. Use custom alerts and generate have an alert something and highly privileged action has been done or an access to the critical sensitive resource has been done. Have those custom alerts and also have custom alerts for break glass accounts like root accounts in AWS or global admin in Azure AD. And then these are the some of the key reports that you can monitor. So I think we are running out of time. So these are in the references I have provided a complete trial guide and also how you can onboard your Azure AD or AWS or GCP account to Entra. And then the pricing details are also shared here. The links for the pricing details are also shared here. Thank you.
Thanks, Perumal and Vinoda, for a great session. I will just stop the recording and you can just answer